Samuel Thompson, a weary old man, believed he was a burden to his family, but his millionaire son had a surprise that would rebuild more than just their home. It would restore his father's hope and dignity. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across Samuel Thompson's weathered hands as he grips his cane on the front porch of Michael and Sarah's suburban Austin home. A group of kids pedals past on their bikes, their laughter sharp against the hollow quiet in his chest. His rheumatic knees protest at the slightest shift in the wooden chair, each creak a reminder of time's steady march. The wind chime Eleanor loved hangs motionless from the porch ceiling, its copper tubes tarnished and tangled. Like him, it's fallen silent. Samuel watches a leaf skitter across the concrete walkway, driven by a breeze he can barely feel in the Texas heat. The neighborhood bustles with life, sprinklers clicking, cars humming past, screen doors banging, but he might as well be watching it all through thick glass. His gaze drifts to Eleanor's photograph on the small side table, her smile frozen in a moment decades past. The silver frame catches the light, and Samuel's throat tightens. His trembling finger traces the curve of her cheek through the glass. They used to share evenings like this on their own porch, sweet tea condensating in tall glasses, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. But that was before the fire, before the smoke claimed their home and everything in it, leaving only this photograph and the crushing weight of absence. "I miss you every day, Ellie," he whispers, the words barely stirring the air. The screen door creaks, and Michael steps onto the porch. Grease stains mark his hands, and he wipes them absently on a shop rag. His son's face holds that familiar mix of concern and resignation that makes Samuel's stomach knot. "Need anything, Dad?" Samuel shakes his head, the motion slow and deliberate. The silence stretches between them like a wall, brick by brick of unspoken words. Michael shifts his weight, the floorboards protesting beneath his boots. "Well, holler if you do." Michael retreats inside, the door closing with a soft thud that feels like punctuation on their stunted exchange. Through the kitchen window, Sarah stands at the sink, dish towel twisted in her hands. Her gaze meets Samuel's for a moment before she turns away, shoulders tense beneath her faded t-shirt. He sees the toll his presence takes, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she moves through the house like she's walking on eggshells. The guilt sits heavy in his chest, a constant companion. A breeze finally stirs the wind chime, but the tubes catch and tangle, producing only a dull clank instead of the melody Eleanor loved. Samuel tightens his grip on the cane, its wooden handle smooth from years of use. That wind chime is a mirror, present but purposeless, hanging on long after its music has faded. The morning finds Samuel in his bedroom, a cardboard box balanced on his lap as he sits by the window. Sunlight filters through thin curtains, highlighting dust motes that dance above the yellowed pages of Eleanor's letters. His fingers, knobbed with arthritis, carefully unfold one dated from the summer of '72, when work took him to Houston for 3 months. "My dearest Eleanor," he reads aloud, his voice rough with disuse. "The city lights can't compare to the stars above our front porch. I can't wait to come home to you." The paper trembles in his grip. He traces the words with his fingertip, feeling the indentations where her pen pressed into the page. The wall across from his bed holds a timeline in photographs, Eleanor cradling newborn Michael, their son's gap-toothed school pictures, Michael and Sarah's wedding day. Samuel's eyes linger on Eleanor's face in each image, the way her smile never changed, even as silver threaded through her dark hair. He touches the glass of the nearest frame. "I'm trying, Ellie," he murmurs. "I really am." The walk to the barn takes twice as long as it should, each step measured against the possibility of falling. Duke waits in his stall, head lowered, his own joints stiff with age. The horse's breath warms Samuel's palm as he runs his hand along the animal's neck, feeling the coarse hair beneath his fingers. "We're getting old, boy," Samuel says, reaching for the feed bucket. His hands shake as he pours the oats, some spilling onto the barn floor. Duke nudges his shoulder gently, a familiar gesture that brings a faint smile to Samuel's lips. This simple task, feeding his old friend, is one of the few things he can still manage, and even that grows harder each day. Boot steps on concrete announce Michael's arrival. Samuel stiffens, aware of his son's eyes on his trembling hands. Need a hand, Dad? Pride flares in Samuel's chest, hot and defensive. I've got it. The silence that follows feels charged, like the air before a storm. Michael sighs, patting Duke's flank before turning away. Let me know if you change your mind. Samuel watches his sons retreating back, shame replacing pride like bitter medicine. The distance between them stretches wider with each passing day, fed by his stubborn independence and Michael's helpless concern. Here's the paragraph rewritten verbatim. Later, passing the kitchen, Samuel hears hushed voices. He pauses in the hallway, his cane frozen mid-step. He's getting worse, Michael. Sarah's voice carries exhaustion in every syllable. We need to talk about options. I know, but it feels wrong to send him away. Michael's response is heavy with conflict. The words hit Samuel like physical blows. He hadn't realized, or perhaps hadn't wanted to admit, how much strain his presence placed on them. Send him away echoes in his mind, each repetition sharper than the last. His grip tightens on the cane until his knuckles whiten. In the bathroom, Samuel confronts his reflection. Cloudy blue eyes stare back from a face mapped with lines, each one a record of joy or sorrow. He barely recognizes himself anymore, this hollow-eyed stranger who's become a burden to his own family. Maybe they're right, he tells his reflection. The mirror offers no answers, only the stark truth of what he's become. Back in his room, Samuel sinks onto the bed, the springs creaking beneath his weight. The conversation plays on repeat in his mind, each word cutting deeper. He wants to ease their burden. God knows they've done more than enough, but the thought of a nursing home feels like surrender, like giving up. What would you do, Ellie? He asks the empty room. Only silence answers, heavy with the weight of decisions unmade. Dinner that evening is a symphony of avoided glances and clinking silverware. Samuel pushes his peas around the plate, gathering courage with each breath. Finally, he clears his throat. I've been thinking, he begins, the words feeling like gravel in his mouth. Michael and Sarah look up, forks paused midair. It's time I went to a nursing home. The silence that follows is deafening. Samuel forces himself to continue, his voice steadier than he feels. Sell the land in the old town. Use it for my care. Michael's fork clatters against his plate. Sarah's eyes widen, her hand frozen halfway to her water glass. The air thickens with unspoken words. Dad? No. Michael's voice cracks on the words. You don't need to do that. Samuel keeps his eyes on his plate, unable to bear the pain in his son's face. It's for the best. The words taste like ash, but he forces them out anyway. Michael's hands clench into fists on the table, but he says nothing more. Sarah swallows hard, looking between father and son with helpless concern. That night, Samuel packs with mechanical precision. A small duffel bag holds the essentials: clothes, toiletries, Eleanor's photograph. He pauses, studying her smile through the glass. The frame catches lamplight, creating the illusion of tears in her eyes. It's time to let go, he whispers, but the words ring hollow in the quiet room. With leaden steps, he makes his way to Michael's room. His son sits on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. Samuel clears his throat. I'm ready for the nursing home. Michael looks up, his eyes glassy in the dim light. He hesitates, then stands. Give me one day, Dad. Just one. Samuel studies his son's face, seeing echoes of Eleanor in the set of his jaw, the pleading in his eyes. After a long moment, he nods. One more day won't change anything, but he can give Michael this small mercy. As he returns to his room, Samuel feels the weight of the decision settle around his shoulders like a heavy coat. Tomorrow, everything will change. But tonight, he'll sit with his memories one last time, letting them wash over him like waves on a distant shore. Morning light spills across Samuel's bedroom floor like honey, warming the worn floorboards beneath his feet. His packed duffel bag sits ready, Eleanor's silver-framed photograph peeking from the side pocket. The weight of finality settles in his chest as he adjusts his grip on the cane, each breath measured against the ticking of the bedside clock. Michael's shadow falls across the doorway. Ready for that ride, Dad? The forced lightness in his voice doesn't quite mask the strain beneath. Samuel nods, unable to trust his own voice. His joints protest as he pushes himself to standing, each movement a reminder of why this day had to come. From the kitchen, the clatter of dishes rings hollow as Sarah busies herself, her shoulders rigid beneath her faded t-shirt. Her eyes are rimmed red when she glances up, though she quickly looks away. Samuel attempts a smile, but it feels more like a grimace, a poor mask for the resignation churning in his gut. The leather seat of Michael's blue Ford pickup creaks beneath Samuel's weight as he eases himself in, Michael's steady hand at his elbow. The familiar sound strikes him as foreign now, like a song played in the wrong key. The engine rumbles to life, and Samuel watches the house recede in the side mirror until it blurs into the morning haze. Suburban streets slide past the window, the world beyond the glass seeming somehow muted, distant. Samuel's jaw clenches against the twisted knot of emotions in his chest. This is right, he tells himself. This is necessary. Soon, Michael and Sarah will be free of their burden, and he'll be where he belongs. The thought sits like ice in his stomach. Michael's knuckles whiten on the steering wheel as he steals glances at his father. Samuel keeps his gaze fixed on the horizon, pretending not to notice the way Michael's mouth opens and closes, words dying before they reach his lips. The silence in the cab grows thick, heavy with all they're not saying. Finally, Michael clears his throat. It's a nice day for a drive. The words fall flat between them, like stones in still water. Samuel manages a tight nod, his voice locked behind a wall of forced composure. He won't break. Not now. Not when they're so close to the end. The truck winds onto familiar country roads, fields of bluebonnets and Indian paintbrush stretching toward the distant hills. Samuel's chest tightens as they pass Old Mill Creek, memories rising unbidden. Eleanor in her yellow sundress, spreading a checkered blanket beneath the oak trees. Her laugh echoing across the water as he tried to skip stones, failing spectacularly. They pass Harrison's General Store, its windows boarded up, paint peeling like old scabs. We used to buy penny candies there, Samuel murmurs, the words slipping out before he can catch them. Eleanor would save the butterscotch ones for him, knowing they were his favorite. She'd always known him better than he knew himself. His voice grows steadier as more memories surface, like bubbles rising from deep water. Remember how your mother would pretend to be shocked every time Mr. Harrison gave you an extra piece of taffy? She knew he did it every time, but she'd act surprised just to make him smile. The words flow easier now, each one a thread connecting him to a tapestry that's slowly unraveling. She made everything feel right, Samuel continues, his voice roughening. Even the hard days seemed manageable with her there. He swallows hard against the tightness in his throat. I wonder what she'd say about all this. Michael's jaw works silently as he focuses on the road ahead, his expression set in stone. Samuel's gaze drops to his hands, spotted and gnarled in his lap. A tremor runs through his fingers, and doubt burrows deeper into his mind like a persistent weed. Is this truly the right choice? Or is he running away, abandoning his family under the guise of doing what's best? His fists clench until his knuckles ache, fighting back the wave of uncertainty threatening to drown him. Maybe I'm just too much trouble, he whispers, the words barely audible above the engine's steady rumble. Michael's grip on the wheel tightens. You're not trouble, Dad. The words hang in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Samuel exhales slowly, the sound lost in the silence that follows. His doubt remains, an unanswered question weighing on his heart. The neon sign of Rusty's Diner flickers ahead, half its letters burnt out against the late morning sky. Michael guides the truck into the gravel parking lot, the tires crunching to a stop. Coffee break, he announces with forced cheer. Samuel frowns, puzzlement cutting through his melancholy. The bell above the door chimes as they enter, the smell of bacon grease and burnt coffee wrapping around them like an old blanket. A few regulars look up from their places at the counter, nodding at Michael in recognition. Samuel shuffles to a booth, the vinyl seat cracked and worn beneath him. The waitress sets 2 steaming mugs before them, coffee black as pitch. Michael leans forward, elbows on the scratched Formica table. Dad, are you sure this is what you want? Samuel stares into his coffee, watching steam curl into the air like lost spirits. It's not about what I want, he says finally, his voice heavy with resignation. It's about what's best for you and Sarah. Michael's brow furrows, a shadow passing across his face. Don't do that. Don't decide what's best for us without asking. Samuel's hands tremble slightly as they wrap around the warm mug. I'm not blind, Michael. I hear the strain in your voices. I see it in your eyes. He takes a shallow breath. I'm just making it easier. Michael runs a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. You think leaving is going to make things easier? It won't. It'll just break our hearts. Moisture gathers in Samuel's eyes, but he refuses to let it fall. Sometimes, Michael, the hardest thing is knowing when to let go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. Michael's voice cracks on the final word. The waitress tops off their cups, oblivious to the storm brewing at the table. Samuel watches the dark liquid rise, wishing he could find the right words to make Michael understand. Back on the road, Samuel notices Michael taking a left where the nursing home route should have been a right. He stiffens in his seat, eyes narrowing as unfamiliar landscape rolls past the windows. Fields stretch toward the horizon, empty save for scattered cattle and the occasional windmill. Michael, where are we going? The question comes out sharp, edged with growing suspicion. Michael keeps his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his response measured. You'll see soon enough. Samuel's heart quickens, confusion and anger bubbling up like a pot about to boil over. His grip tightens on his cane until his knuckles shine white against the worn wood. The truck continues its journey down unknown roads, scenery blurring into a tapestry of green and gold. Michael, I asked you a question. Samuel's jaw clenches, teeth grinding against rising frustration. Trust me, Dad. Michael's lips press into a thin line. Trust you? The words taste bitter on Samuel's tongue. You promised me we were going to the nursing home. Betrayal cuts deep, sharper than any physical pain. His fragile sense of control slips away like water through cupped hands. This isn't right, Michael. You're not respecting my wishes. Michael's hands tighten on the wheel, but he remains silent. Samuel's chest constricts, each breath coming faster than the last as panic rises like a tide. Turn around, Michael. Take me where I ask to go. Michael glances at his father, pain and determination warring in his expression. I'm asking you to trust me for just a little while longer. I trusted you to respect my decision. Samuel's voice rises, cracking like dry timber. This isn't fair. Sometimes, Dad, Michael's voice softens, though determination underscores each word. What's fair and what's right aren't the same thing. The truck slows as they approach a gravel driveway bordered by ancient oak trees. Samuel's heart pounds against his ribs, fear and confusion tangling in his mind like thorny vines. What is Michael doing? Where are they going? The questions circle like hungry vultures, but no answers come. The afternoon sun casts dappled shadows through the oak trees as Michael's blue Ford pickup lurches onto the gravel road. Samuel's knuckles whiten around the door handle, each crunch of stone beneath the tires sending tremors through his weathered hands. The familiar thrum of the engine fills the cab, masking the rapid beating of his heart. Ancient oaks arch overhead like cathedral spires, their branches weaving together to form a canopy that filters the sunlight into shifting patterns on the dusty dashboard. Samuel leans forward in his seat, arthritis forgotten as recognition stirs in his chest. The road winds ahead, each curve etched into his memory like the grain lines in well-worn wood. This road, the words escape in a whisper, barely audible above the engine's rumble. Samuel's breath catches in his throat as understanding dawns. This isn't just any country lane. It's the path to his old home, to the house he built with Eleanor, the one the flames claimed years ago. His heart stammers against his ribs, hope and dread tangling in his chest like thorny vines. Shadows of the past flicker at the edges of his vision. Eleanor sits beside him in memory, her dark hair catching the sunlight as they drive this same road on countless Sunday afternoons. Her laugh echoes in his mind, clear as wind chimes in a summer breeze. The scent of fresh bread drifts through time, Eleanor's hands dusted with flour, the kitchen windows thrown open to catch the breeze. Duke's hoofbeats on packed earth, the clip-clop rhythm as familiar as his own heartbeat. Samuel's eyes burn, the road ahead blurring into a wash of green and gold. His fingers tremble against the door handle. Michael, he manages, his voice rough with emotion. What's going on? The truck slows, gravel crunching beneath the tires as they approach an iron gate. Fresh black paint gleams in the afternoon light, and jasmine vines twist around the posts like embracing lovers. The sweet perfume drifts through the truck's open windows, and Samuel's chest constricts with a pressure that's equal parts pain and longing. Michael turns off the engine, the silence sudden and heavy. He looks at his father, his expression gentle but unreadable. "Just trust me, Dad. Come see." Samuel's hand trembles on the door handle. The metal feels cool against his palm, grounding him in the present even as the past threatens to overwhelm his senses. He pushes the door open, the hinges protesting with a familiar squeal. His feet find the gravel, and he eases himself out of the truck, legs unsteady beneath him. The breeze carries the scent of home, jasmine and freshly cut grass, sun-warmed earth, and the ghost of Eleanor's favorite roses. Samuel takes a halting step forward, his cane tapping against loose stones. The path beyond the gate beckons, and his heart pounds with each step closer. The truck door closes behind him with a muted thud that barely registers in his consciousness. Samuel shuffles forward, the tap of his cane marking time like a metronome. The path widens, trees giving way to open space, and his next breath lodges in his throat. The house stands before him, his house, risen from the ashes like a phoenix. Whitewashed walls gleam in the afternoon light, the wraparound porch with its familiar railing exactly as he remembers. Eleanor's flower beds burst with color, zinnias and black-eyed Susans, marigolds and purple coneflowers nodding in the breeze. Even the window boxes overflow with trailing petunias, their faces turned toward the sun. Samuel's jaw slackens, his eyes wide with disbelief. The cane trembles in his grip as he stares at the impossible sight before him. Is this real? The words scratch past his lips, barely more than a breath. Sunlight glints off the windows, and a breeze stirs the curtains within, curtains that match the ones Eleanor sewed decades ago. The house seems to breathe, as alive in this moment as it was in his memories. A murmur of voices breaks through his daze, and Samuel turns his head to find a gathering of familiar faces emerging from behind the house. Sarah stands with Mrs. Keller, the elderly neighbor who used to bring over sugar cookies every Sunday after church. John Matthews, his fishing buddy of 30 years, grins beneath his weathered ball cap. Even some of the neighborhood children hover at the edges of the group, their eyes bright with excitement. Michael's hand settles on Samuel's shoulder, warm and steady. It's not just us, Dad. The whole community came together. They all wanted to help rebuild your home. Sarah steps forward, tears glistening in her eyes. Because you matter to us, Samuel. You always have. The lump in Samuel's throat threatens to choke him. His lips quiver and the world blurs as tears fill his eyes. You did all this for me? The words crack and splinter, fragments of speech that barely capture the storm of emotion in his chest. His legs buckle beneath him like the weight of realization too heavy to bear. Michael and Sarah move as one, catching him before he can fall. Samuel's free hand covers his mouth, but it can't hold back the sob that tears free from his chest. Years of grief and guilt crash over him like a wave, washing away the walls he's built around his heart. In their place floods an overwhelming sense of love and belonging that leaves him gasping. Tears stream unchecked down his weathered cheeks as his shoulders shake with silent sobs. The emotions are too powerful to contain, too raw to hide behind his usual stoic facade. I thought, he chokes out. I thought I was just in the way. Michael's voice breaks as he replies, You're never in the way, Dad. You're a part of this family, a part of this town. We need you as much as you need us. Samuel draws a shaky breath, his heart swelling with a warmth he thought was lost forever. The house before him, his friends gathered close, his family's unwavering support. It all feels like a lifeline pulled from the ashes of despair. For the first time in years, hope blooms fully in his heart, as bright and resilient as Eleanor's beloved roses. With Michael and Sarah flanking him like guardian angels, Samuel takes a deep breath and steps toward the front porch. The wooden steps creak beneath his feet, each sound an echo of countless homecomings. The door swings open, and the mingled scents of fresh-cut wood and lavender, Eleanor's signature fragrance, wrap around him like an embrace. Samuel crosses the threshold, his eyes sweeping over the living room. The worn rocking chair sits in its place by the window, a hand-knitted blanket draped over its back. The mantel holds framed photographs chronicling his life with Eleanor, their wedding day, Michael's first steps, summer picnics, and Christmas mornings, each moment preserved in sepia and silver. His trembling fingers brush the back of the chair, the smooth wood anchoring him to reality. It's like she's still here, he murmurs, the words barely disturbing the air. A bittersweet comfort settles over him like evening dew. Samuel turns slowly, drinking in every detail. The rebuilt bookshelves lined with familiar spines, the fireplace with its river rock hearth, the quilt Eleanor sewed, spread across the sofa in a riot of blues and greens. Each piece feels like a fragment of his soul, carefully gathered and lovingly restored. The emptiness that's haunted his chest for so long begins to fill with warmth. The weight of loneliness lifting from his shoulders like morning mist. Michael squeezes his shoulder, the gesture saying more than words ever could. This isn't just a house, Dad. It's home, and you're a part of it. Samuel nods, tears still glazing his eyes. For the first time since the fire claimed his old life, the word home doesn't feel like a ghost haunting his tongue. It feels real, solid as the floorboards beneath his feet and the love surrounding him. His heart swells as he whispers, "I'm home." The guilt that's been his constant companion evaporates like dew in the morning sun, replaced by the unshakable knowledge that he is deeply loved, desperately needed, and finally irrevocably home. Samuel Thompson stands in the living room of his rebuilt home, sunlight streaming through freshly cleaned windows. The air carries hints of lemon polish and something sweet. Sarah's bread baking in the kitchen. His fingers drift across Eleanor's rocking chair, catching on the familiar knots and grooves in the wood. The smoothness beneath his touch releases a flood of memories. Eleanor in this chair, humming as she knitted, her silver hair catching the light just so. Michael and Sarah hover nearby, their hopeful gazes heavy on his shoulders. The morning light catches the dark circles under Sarah's eyes and Samuel's chest tightens. Even now, they're sacrificing sleep for his comfort. "Michael," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. The words stick in his throat like cotton. "This is more than I ever—" He stops, staring down at his hands. They tremble against his cane, betraying his weakness. "But what if I can't manage? What if I'm still too much?" "Dad?" Michael steps forward, jaw set in that stubborn way he inherited from Eleanor. "We didn't rebuild this house just for you to struggle alone. We're here." He gestures around the room, encompassing the wider doorways, the sturdy railings that line the walls. "All of us. We'll figure it out together." Samuel's throat constricts. The modifications mock him, each grab bar and ramp a testament to his frailty. Michael continues his tour, pointing out features with forced cheerfulness. The bathroom's completely accessible now, and Sarah's been studying physical therapy exercises we can do right here at home. The weight of their dedication presses down on Samuel's shoulders. He shifts his grip on the cane, shame burning in his chest. They shouldn't have to learn medical procedures just to accommodate him. Sarah approaches, her smile gentle but tired. "Samuel, you took care of Michael all those years." She squeezes his hand, her touch warm and sure. "Let us return the favor. It's not a burden if it's for someone we love." Samuel's shoulders slump. He wants to believe them, wants it more than anything. But the evidence of their sacrifice surrounds him. The renovation costs, the time spent, the energy devoted to his care. He forces his lips into what he hopes passes for a smile. "I'll try. I promise." The words taste hollow, like ashes on his tongue. Later that afternoon, Michael leads him to the barn. Dust motes dance in the shafts of sunlight that pierce the wooden slats. The familiar sense of hay and horse wrap around him, but something's different. The vitality is gone, replaced by a stillness that makes Samuel's skin prickle. Duke stands in the corner, head low, coat dulled by age. The horse's once proud frame has withered, bones pressing against patchy skin. Samuel's heart twists as Duke lifts his head, eyes clouded and distant. "Hey there, old boy." Samuel shuffles forward, each tap of his cane against the wooden floor echoing in the quiet barn. His hand trembles as he reaches for Duke's muzzle. The horse leans into his touch, but the movement lacks its old enthusiasm. Their connection feels stretched thin, worn down by time's relentless march. Samuel watches Duke's labored breathing, recognition hitting him like a physical blow. The horse's stiff movements mirror his own, the way he struggles with stairs, how his joints protest every morning. They're both just shells of what they used to be, hanging on past their prime. Tears blur his vision. "We're both worn out, aren't we, Duke?" The words scratch his throat. Reality settles over him like a heavy blanket. No amount of renovation can stop time's inevitable advance. Michael's voice breaks through his thoughts. "He's just old, Dad. Like us, but he still deserves a good life. Samuel nods mechanically, but despair rises in his chest like floodwater. Maybe it's time to let go, he mutters. The words taste bitter, but they feel true. Michael's face tightens. Dad, Duke still has time left, and so do you. Samuel closes his eyes against the pain in his son's voice. I'm not sure I can do this, Michael. His grip whitens on the cane. Maybe this isn't where I belong anymore. Michael steps back, uncertainty clouding his features. The silence between them grows, thick and oppressive. The barn walls seem to close in, and Samuel feels more lost than ever. That night, Samuel lies rigid in his new bed, staring at the ceiling. The house creaks and settles around him, each sound amplified in the darkness. The conversation in the barn plays on endless repeat in his mind, Duke's weary eyes superimposed over his own reflection in the bathroom mirror. He turns his head toward the nightstand where Eleanor's photo sits in its silver frame. Her smile, usually a comfort, now twists something inside him. I don't want to be a burden, Ellie, he whispers to the darkness. His chest constricts, making it hard to breathe. The thought slips into his mind like a thief. He could leave. Pack a bag, slip out before dawn, find somewhere quiet where he won't drag anyone down with him. The idea terrifies him, but it also offers a kind of peace. His fingers curl into the fresh sheets. Maybe they'd be better off, he mutters, voice thick with unshed tears. Duke's tired eyes haunt him. If an old horse deserves rest, maybe he does too. But the thought of Michael's face, hurt, confused, betrayed, if he found Samuel gone, the image stabs at his heart. A tear escapes, tracking down his temple to dampen the pillow. What do I do, Ellie? The darkness offers no answers, only the weight of his doubts pressing down like a physical thing. Samuel turns onto his side, curling inward as if he can protect himself from his own thoughts. Sleep remains distant, and the battle in his heart rages on, unresolved. The night stretches endless before him, filled with the ghosts of decisions unmade. Sunlight spills through the bedroom window, casting a warm glow over the quilted bedspread. Samuel Thompson sits on the edge of the bed, his cane leaning against his knee. His hands are clasped tightly, the knuckles pale from the pressure. The restless night lingers in the shadows under his eyes and the stiffness in his joints. His decision feels like lead in his chest. Heavy, immovable. Today, he'll leave, no matter how much it hurts. He reaches for Eleanor's photograph on the nightstand. Dust motes dance in the morning light as his fingers trace the edge of the silver frame. I hope you understand, Ellie, he whispers, his voice catching on the words. The sound barely disturbs the stillness of the room, but it echoes in his chest like thunder. Samuel pushes himself to his feet, wincing at the familiar protest of his knees. The small duffel bag on the bed waits half-packed, clothes folded with mechanical precision. Each item represents another brick in the wall he's building between himself and his family. Protection, he tells himself. Protection for them from the burden he's become. His hands shake as he adds Eleanor's photograph to the bag. The frame catches the light, throwing a brief rainbow against the wall. Samuel pauses, his throat tight. The rainbow fades, leaving only shadows. He moves toward his dresser, each step measured against the silence of the house. The drawer slides open with a soft scrape. Inside, nestled between worn sweaters, lies the envelope containing the paperwork for the land sale. His fingers brush the crisp edges before pulling it free. The weight of it feels wrong in his hands, like holding something dead. Samuel tucks the envelope into the bag beside Eleanor's photo. The zipper's rasp cuts through the morning quiet like a knife. He straightens, squaring his shoulders against the weight of what's to come. The conversation with Michael looms ahead of him, a mountain he must climb. His reflection in the dresser mirror stops him short. Clouded blue eyes stare back, set deep in a face mapped with lines of worry and grief. When did he start looking so old, so tired? He hardly recognizes himself anymore. The sound of movement outside draws his attention to the window. Samuel's grip on his cane loosens as he watches Michael and Sarah crossing the yard toward the barn. They move with easy familiarity, shoulders close but not quite touching. The sight sends an ache through his chest that has nothing to do with age. Duke's head appears in the barn doorway, ears pricked forward. Even from here, Samuel can see the spark of life returning to the old horse's eyes as Michael approaches. Sarah adjusts the feed bucket while Michael runs the brush over Duke's coat in long, careful strokes. The horse leans into the touch, and Michael's laugh carries faintly through the glass. Something shifts in Samuel's chest, subtle as a change in the wind. He watches Sarah rest her hand on Michael's back, her smile soft in the morning light. The tenderness in the gesture makes his throat tight. The scene before him speaks of patience, of dedication. Not just to Duke, but to everything they care for, including him. Samuel's fingers flex around the handle of his cane, the certainty that drove him to pack waivers, just for a moment. If they can show such devotion to an aging horse, perhaps. He shakes his head against the thought. Hope is dangerous. Hope makes you vulnerable. Better to leave now while he still has the strength to do it right. Samuel moves toward the front door, each step echoing in the empty hallway. The morning air hits his face as he steps onto the porch, carrying the scent of hay and distant rain. Michael's voice drifts from the barn, too low to make out the words, but the tone is gentle. Duke nudges Michael's shoulder and Sarah laughs, the sound bright against the morning quiet. The scene twists something in Samuel's chest. His throat tightens with words he wants to say but doesn't know how. The fear that's driven him to pack his bags wars with a deeper need, the need to belong, to be part of this quiet moment of grace. His grip on the cane loosens, then tightens again. The doubt he's carried like armor begins to crack, letting in slivers of something that feels dangerously like hope. But hope is a treacherous thing when you're old and broken, when all you can see is the burden you've become. Samuel watches Michael scratch behind Duke's ears, the gesture so familiar it makes his heart ache. Sarah moves to Duke's other side, her hands gentle as she checks his legs. They work in comfortable silence, a team united in purpose. The love in their actions is visible, tangible, and it extends beyond Duke, he realizes with a start. It extends to him too, whether he's ready to accept it or not. He clears his throat, the sound trembling in the morning air. Michael and Sarah turn, surprise etched on their faces. Samuel takes a halting step forward, his cane tapping against the wooden planks of the porch. The weight of what he needs to say sits heavy on his tongue. Michael, he manages, the word rough with emotion. I need to talk to you. Michael wipes his hands on a rag, concern creasing his brow. He moves toward the porch, Sarah following a step behind. The distance between them feels like miles. Samuel swallows hard, his gaze dropping to the weathered boards beneath his feet. I've been thinking. The words stick in his throat like thorns. He forces them out anyway. I should go. To the nursing home. The silence that follows is deafening. Samuel makes himself continue, each word a stone in his chest. I don't want to be a burden on you and Sarah. You've done so much, but it's not fair to ask you to keep doing this. The words hang in the air between them, heavy with all the things he can't bring himself to say. How much it hurts to need help. How the fear of being unwanted eats at him day and night. How sometimes he catches them looking at him with worry in their eyes, and each of those looks feels like another nail in his coffin. Michael's face contorts with emotion, his eyes flashing with a mix of frustration and pain that makes Samuel's chest tight. Dad, you're not a burden. Why can't you see that? Michael's voice rises, then drops, thick with feeling. We didn't rebuild this house out of obligation. We did it because we want you here, because you're family. Sarah steps forward, her voice gentle but firm. Samuel, taking care of you isn't a burden, it's a privilege. She pauses, her eyes soft with understanding. Just like you cared for Michael all those years. Michael's hands shake as he runs them through his hair. This isn't just about restoring a house. It's about giving you a future with us. We want you here, not just in memory, but here, living with us. Samuel's shoulders begin to tremble, tears pressing hot against his eyes. But what if I can't? His voice breaks, the fear finally spilling out. What if I can't give anything back? His fingers tighten around the cane until his knuckles whiten. What if all I do is take? The vulnerability in his own voice startles him. He hasn't let himself be this honest since Eleanor died, since the fire took their home and left him adrift in a world that seemed to have no place for him anymore. Michael moves closer, his voice choked with emotion. Dad, you've already given me everything. You taught me to work hard, to care, to love. His eyes shimmer with unshed tears. That doesn't stop just because you need help now. He reaches out, his hand warm on Samuel's shoulder. Let us give back to you. That's what family does. The walls Samuel has built around his heart crumble like ash. A sob tears free from his chest, and he covers his face with one trembling hand. His shoulders shake with the force of emotions he's kept bottled up for too long. Grief for Eleanor, fear of being alone, the desperate need to be needed. Michael pulls him into a hug, strong arms wrapping around Samuel's thin frame. The embrace anchors him, holds him steady as years of loneliness and fear wash through him like a storm. "We love you, Dad," Michael whispers fiercely. "Please, stay." Slowly, Samuel's arms rise to return the embrace. The warmth of it melts the last of his resistance, the final barriers he's built against hope. Tears stream down his cheeks, and for once he doesn't try to hide them. The fear of being unwanted, of being a burden, dissolves in the strength of Michael's hold. Sarah joins them, her arms encircling them both. They stand together in the morning light, the barn silent except for their mingled breaths and Duke's gentle snorts. When they finally pull apart, Samuel wipes his eyes with a trembling hand. A smile tugs at his lips, wobbly but real. I guess I'll stay." Michael's answering grin is wide and bright, his own tears catching the sunlight. "Good, because we need you, Dad." As if in agreement, Duke ambles over and nudges Samuel's shoulder with his soft nose. Samuel can't help the chuckle that escapes him, the sound rusty but genuine. A lightness spreads through his chest, something he hasn't felt in years. The days that follow flow like honey, sweet and slow. Samuel finds his place in the rhythm of his rebuilt home, each morning brighter than the last. The weight of indecision lifts from his shoulders, replaced by a quiet certainty. This is where he belongs. He joins Michael in the barn each morning, helping with Duke as much as his body allows. His movements are slow, careful, but the simple tasks bring him peace. Brushing Duke's coat, measuring out feed, listening to the old horse's contented sighs, these small moments fill Samuel with purpose. Michael works beside him, their silence comfortable now, unbroken by the strain of unspoken words. The house itself seems to breathe easier. The smell of Sarah's cooking wafts through open windows, mingling with the scent of fresh-cut grass and summer blooms. Laughter echoes through rooms that once felt too big, too empty. Samuel no longer feels like a ghost in his own life. He is solid, present, needed. At Michael's encouragement, Samuel ventures beyond the property. The local community center welcomes him with open arms, familiar faces brightening at his arrival. Mrs. Keller, her silver hair catching the light, immediately invites him to join her gardening club. "We could use someone who knows his way around a toolbox," she says with a wink. "These raised beds won't build themselves." John Matthews, still wearing his trademark suspenders, corners Samuel by the coffee pot. "About time you showed up," he says gruffly, but his eyes are warm. "Fish are biting at the lake. What do you say to a trip next weekend?" Samuel finds himself nodding, a smile tugging at his lips. The town, once a collection of memories that hurt to revisit, feels alive again. Each friendly face, each casual invitation, weaves him back into the fabric of community he thought he'd lost forever. One afternoon, while resting on a park bench, a familiar voice catches his attention. "Samuel Thompson, is that really you?" He looks up to find Martha Hill standing before him, her presence like an echo from his past made flesh. Her silver hair glints in the sunlight, and her eyes twinkle with the same mischief they held in their school days. Samuel's heart swells with recognition and something else, something that feels surprisingly like joy. "It's me, Martha," he says, his voice steady and sure. "It's really me." Martha and Samuel fall into an easy friendship, their shared history bridging the years between them. They walk slowly through the park most afternoons, Samuel's cane tapping in rhythm with their steps. Martha's stories of their youth blend with tales of her grandchildren, her volunteer work at the library, the book club she runs on Thursdays. "You should join us," she says one day, her hand warm on his arm. "We're reading that mystery series you always loved." Samuel finds himself sharing too. Stories of Eleanor, of Michael growing up, of the fire that changed everything. Martha listens with the patience of someone who understands loss, who knows that sometimes healing comes in the telling. One particularly golden afternoon, Martha joins Samuel on the porch of his rebuilt home. They sit in comfortable silence, sipping sweet tea and watching the sun paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Michael and Sarah wave from the garden, their smiles genuine and warm. Samuel leans back in his chair, feeling the rough grain of wood beneath his fingers, the gentle breeze on his face. The house that once held only shadows now brims with life. Evenings gather them around the dinner table, where stories flow as freely as coffee. Michael's eyes shine as Samuel recounts tales of his own father, of learning carpentry at those weathered hands. Sarah laughs at the right moments, asks the right questions, her presence a steady warmth at the table. Duke grazes peacefully in the paddock, his coat gleaming in the evening light. Samuel watches him through the kitchen window, remembering the day they thought they might lose him. Now the old horse lifts his head at their approach, ears pricked forward, still full of life and love to give. Samuel no longer feels like a burden. He feels like a patriarch, a vital thread in the tapestry of his family's life. The fear and guilt that haunted him have melted away like morning frost in the sun. The rebuilt home stands as more than shelter. It's a testament to love restored, to second chances granted and taken. One evening, as the sun begins its slow descent, Samuel stands at the front door. The twilight air carries the scent of Sarah's roses and fresh-cut grass. He whispers to the wind, soft and sure, "Thank you, Ellie." The wind chime Eleanor loved so much rings gently, a sweet reply that brings a smile to his lips. He knows now that he is exactly where he belongs. The final rays of sunlight paint the sky in brilliant hues as Samuel sits on the porch, Martha's hand warm in his. Michael and Sarah settle into nearby chairs, their presence a comfort he no longer tries to deny. Duke grazes in the yard, his tail swishing contentedly in the evening breeze. Michael wraps an arm around Samuel's shoulders, his touch gentle but sure. "Beautiful, isn't it, Dad?" Samuel smiles, his heart full to bursting. "Yes," he says softly, looking at his family gathered close, at the home rebuilt with love, at the life he almost let slip away. "Yes, it is." Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.